Commander Lily Everett stood by the big window of the spaceship GCS Horizon. It was the first ship humans had sent into deep space to talk with aliens. Outside, a cloud of colorful space gas made blue and purple lights dance across her tired face. She had worked for the Galactic Coalition for 20 years, but nothing had prepared her for meeting the Valkyrie. These female aliens had ruled this part of space for thousands of years. "They're calling us again, Commander," said Officer Brooke Winters from her desk. "Ambassador Maya says we must go to their rite of ascension ceremony." Lily took a deep breath. These ceremonies could be tricky. One wrong move could ruin Earth's new friendship with the 12 alien species in the Coalition. "Tell them we'll be there," she said. Their small shuttle landed on the Valkyrie planet. Ambassador Maya met them there. She was 7 feet tall with skin that changed colors like a mood ring. Right now it was a calm diplomatic blue. 4 curved horns grew from her head, and glowing marks on her face served as both decoration and a way to communicate. "The ancient blade of Zorathi has not moved for 9,000 years, Maya told them as they walked through giant halls made of crystal. "Legend says only the worthy can lift it. Every cycle, people from all Coalition species try to lift it." What Maya didn't say, what Lily knew from secret reports, was that the Valkyrie used this ceremony to show they were better than everyone else. No alien except a Valkyrie had ever lifted the sword. Only 3 Valkyrie in all of history had done it, and each one became the supreme ruler of their kind. When they entered the sacred room, thousands of aliens from 12 different worlds went quiet. In the center stood a simple stone pedestal. Stuck in it was a curved blade that seemed to swallow light instead of shine. "It doesn't look special," whispered Lieutenant Paige Martinez, who studied alien biology. "That's not normal metal," Lily whispered back. "Our reports say it's older than the Valkyrie civilization itself." One by one, aliens tried to lift the sword. Huge rock-skinned Cronians, mind-reading ether beings, and even the super-smart group mind of the Nexus tried and failed. The sword didn't move at all. Then the Valkyrie champion stepped forward. High General Astrid's skin pulsed bright red with ambition. She grabbed the handle and pulled with all her strength. For a moment the blade shook, then stayed stuck. Shocked, whispers filled the room. No Valkyrie champion had failed in hundreds of years. "The blade has rejected everyone," announced Elder Valerie, her skin turning a disappointed gray. "The ceremony is—" "Wait," interrupted Ambassador Maya, her skin suddenly turning violet with curiosity. "The humans have not tried yet." All eyes turned to the Earth group. Captain Drew Harrington had not planned to attend the ceremony. As the Horizon's security chief, he preferred staying on the ship, watching for dangers. But Commander Everett had insisted humans needed to show goodwill by joining all Coalition customs. Now, with thousands of alien eyes on him, Drew wished he had stayed behind. "This is a mistake," he whispered to Lily. "We're new to the Coalition. We shouldn't risk making them angry." "Too late," Lily replied. "Ambassador Maya has formally asked us to try. Saying no now would be worse." Drew walked slowly to the pedestal. At 6'1", he was tall for a human but small compared to most aliens there. His broad shoulders and strong build, kept up through hard training despite artificial gravity, didn't impress the towering Valkyrie. Ambassador Maya's skin rippled with green amusement. "Your species is young, human. Don't feel bad when you fail." The room fell silent as Drew looked at the sword. It seemed ancient but not damaged, with strange symbols carved into it that no one had ever translated. He reached out nervously and wrapped his fingers around the handle. The moment he touched it, a surge of energy ran through his body. The sword made a humming sound that he felt more than heard. Drew's mind filled with broken images, stars exploding, civilizations rising and falling, and something ancient watching from empty space. Without thinking, Drew tightened his grip and pulled. The sword came out easily. The room erupted in chaos. Valkyrie guards quickly surrounded Drew with weapons drawn. Elder Valerie's skin flashed alarmed white while Ambassador Maya turned a confused purple-red. "Impossible," hissed General Astrid, her red skin darkening to almost black with rage. but no one could deny what happened. Drew stood holding the ancient blade, which now glowed with soft blue light that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. "The human has lifted Zorathi's blade," Elder Valerie finally said, her voice shaking. "By our most sacred laws, this changes everything." What no one told the humans was that according to 9,000-year-old Valkyrie tradition, whoever pulled out the sword earned the right to rule their civilization, and by extension, much of the coalition. And that was exactly what the Valkyrie's ancient enemy had been waiting for. Days passed. The human delegation stayed in protective custody in the Valkyrie palace. No one would tell them what was happening, but they could feel the tension growing. Guards doubled, then tripled. Valkyrie officials hurried through hallways with skin flashing worried colors. Drew couldn't put the sword down. Every time he tried, it made a painful, high-pitched sound that only he could hear. At night, he had strange dreams of a war that crossed galaxies and a being called the Void Empress. "Something big is coming," he told Lily. "I can feel it." On the 5th day, Ambassador Maya entered their room. Her skin showed a troubled mix of blue and gray. "The Council of Elders wants to speak with the human who pulled the sword," she said. "Alone." "No way," Lily objected. "Captain Harrington doesn't go anywhere without security." "This is not a request," Maya replied, her skin rippling. Drew stood up. "It's okay, Commander, I'll go." "Drew, the sword wants me to," he said quietly. "I can feel it." As Drew followed Maya through the crystal halls, he noticed something strange. The Valkyrie they passed looked at him with fear, not anger. Some even bowed their heads. Whatever was happening, one thing was clear. The universe had changed when he lifted that sword, and nothing would ever be the same again. 20 minutes later, Drew stood before the Council of Elders, 13 ancient Valkyrie whose skin had faded to pale blue with age. Elder Valerie sat on the central throne. "Human," she began, "do you know what you hold?" "A key," Drew answered, surprising himself. The words came from his mouth without him thinking about them. "A key and a warning." The elders looked at each other. "He speaks truth he cannot know," whispered one. Elder Valerie nodded seriously. "The blade you hold was not made by Valkyrie. It was given to us by the predecessors, those your kind might call progenitors, who planted life throughout this galaxy, before disappearing. The sword is both a weapon and a key to something much greater." "The Vault of Stars," Drew said, again speaking words he didn't consciously know. "Yes," confirmed Valerie. "For 9,000 years, we have guarded the vault, entrance allowing no one to enter. The Blade of Zorathi chooses who may access the vault's power. It has chosen you, though we cannot understand why." What Valerie didn't say, what Drew somehow knew, was that the elders were terrified. If humans could access predecessor technology, the balance of power would shift dramatically. "There is more," said another elder, her skin pulsing with worry. "The blade's activation has sent a signal. Our long-sleeping enemy has awakened." Just then, alarms blared throughout the palace. "They're here," whispered Elder Valerie, her skin turning ashen gray. The attack began without warning. From the palace, windows Drew watched as massive black ships came through tiers in space, ships shaped like skeletal hands, each finger a weapon platform raining destruction on the Valkyrie capital. "The Null Collective," Ambassador Maya explained as they raced through collapsing corridors. Her once calm manner had vanished, her skin flashing warning oranges and reds. "They were locked away by the predecessors ages ago. The sword's awakening has broken their prison." The human delegation and a handful of Valkyrie guards fought their way to an underground hangar, where a sleek craft waited, the personal ship of Elder Valerie, who had not survived the initial attack. "We must reach the vault before they do," Maya insisted as they boarded. As the ship broke through the atmosphere, they saw the full horror of the invasion. Hundreds of the skeletal ships surrounded the planet, while smaller craft deployed ground forces, biomechanical horrors that moved with unnatural speed. "There," Page pointed to a massive structure on one of the planet's moons, a sprawling complex built into the lunar surface. its architecture unlike anything human or Valkyrie. The Vault of Stars, Maya confirmed. Sealed, since before my species learned to fly in space. Their small craft darted between debris and enemy vessels, taking heavy fire before crash landing near the vault entrance, a towering doorway carved into the lunar rock face, covered in the same symbols that adorned. The sword Drew approached, sword in hand. The blade pulled him forward as if magnetically attracted to the door. When he pressed it against the symbols, the entire structure lit up, lines of blue energy spreading outward in complex patterns. The doorway dissolved, revealing a vast chamber beyond. They had barely entered when a teleportation field shimmered behind them. A tall figure appeared, humanoid but wrong in subtle, disturbing ways. Her skin was see-through, revealing not organs but swirling darkness dotted with tiny points of light like distant stars. Her eyes were black voids with pinpricks of white light. "The Empress," gasped Maya, dropping to her knees. At last, the figure spoke, her voice echoing on multiple frequencies at once. "The key-bearer arrives, just as prophecy foretold." "Who are you?" Drew demanded, raising the sword. "I am Cassandra, Empress of the Void Between Stars, last survivor of those you call predecessors." Her gaze fixed on Drew. "And you, human, have been chosen to determine the fate of all life in this galaxy." She gestured, and the chamber transformed around them, walls becoming transparent to reveal a vast repository of technology, ships, weapons, and devices of incomprehensible purpose. "My people moved beyond physical form thousands of years ago," she continued, "but I stayed to guard against the Null Collective, beings from another reality who feed on consciousness itself. We locked them away but knew they would eventually return." The sword, Drew realized. It's been waiting for someone who could use it. "Yes," Cassandra confirmed. "The Blade of Zorathi is tuned to specific genetic markers. The Valkyrie were our most promising descendants, but the marker became too diluted over generations. Then came humanity, carrying the markers in abundance, though you don't know why." She approached Drew, her void-like hand reaching toward his face but not quite touching. "You are our backup plan, human. When the predecessors left this plane of existence, we created safeguards should the Null return. You will activate the Stellar Aegis, a weapon that will push the Null back to their dimension at great cost." "What cost?" Lily demanded. "The energy requirements will destroy the solar system," Cassandra stated matter-of-factly. "A necessary sacrifice to save trillions across the galaxy." Drew looked at Maya, whose skin had turned a horrified ash gray. Her homeworld and billions of her people would be destroyed. "There must be another way," he insisted. Cassandra's star-filled eyes regarded him curiously. "There is not. Unless what?" Drew pressed. "Unless you are more than we anticipated," she replied mysteriously. "The choice is yours, Keybearer. Activate the Aegis or watch as the Null consume all sentient life in this galaxy, world by world." The chamber shook as Null forces began breaching the vault's outer defenses. Time was running out. Drew stood before the central platform Cassandra had revealed, a circular dais where the sword could be inserted to activate the stellar Aegis. Once started, there would be no stopping the chain reaction. "I won't sacrifice billions of innocent people," Drew declared. "Then you doom trillions more," Cassandra replied without emotion. "The Null cannot be reasoned with or defeated by normal means." "You're wrong," Drew said, surprising himself with his certainty. "The sword didn't choose me to destroy. It chose me because humans understand something your people forgot." "And what is that, Keybearer?" "Adaptation, compromise, finding a third option when only two seem possible." Drew turned to Paige. "You said the sword contains quantum entanglement technology, right? And the Null ships use dimensional rifts for travel?" Paige nodded slowly, understanding dawning. "If we reverse the entanglement field and tune it to their dimensional frequency, we could send them back without destroying the system," Drew finished. "Impossible," Cassandra stated. "The power requirements will use their own ships," Lily interjected, catching on. "Their weapons are already drawing massive energy from this moon. If we can hack into their network, I can do it, Brooke volunteered. Their communication systems use quantum principles similar to what we've been developing. Cassandra observed them with growing interest, the stars in her void-like eyes pulsing brighter. You propose to repurpose 9-million-year-old technology you barely understand, hack into an alien network, and create a dimensional barrier that my entire civilization couldn't conceive? Yes, Drew said simply. That's what humans do. What followed was a desperate race against time. While Lily and Maya led the defense against approaching null forces, Brooke and Paige worked to connect human and predecessor technology. Drew, guided by increasingly clear visions from the sword, helped Cassandra reconfigure the stellar aegis. Brooke sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes closed as she manipulated holographic controls that responded to her thoughts. Their network is unlike anything I've ever seen, she said. It's not digital or even quantum as we understand it. It's conscious somehow. That's because the null ships are partially alive, Cassandra explained. They're grown, not built. Drew winced as another vision hit him. Diagrams of the null, biology, the weak points in their network, the frequencies they couldn't perceive. Try wavelength 1.8264 petahertz, he said, the numbers coming to him from nowhere. Their network has a blind spot there. Brooke's eyes widened. That actually works, I'm in. Meanwhile, Paige had dismantled parts of the crashed Valkyrie ship, combining its propulsion crystals with components from the vault. If we can create a feedback loop between the sword and their dimensional drives, she explained, we might be able to reverse the polarity of their rifts. Lily and Maya returned, both injured but still fighting. Behind them, the sounds of battle grew louder. We won't hold them much longer, Lily reported. Whatever you're doing, do it fast. Drew felt the sword vibrating in his hands, eager to be used. It had been waiting for this moment for 9,000 years. I think we're ready, he said. Just as he was about to place the sword in the modified dais, a wall of the chamber exploded, inward. Through the breach stepped a figure that hurt the eyes to look at. A tall, impossibly thin entity that seemed to be made of negative space, a hole in reality shaped like a woman. The Null Empress, whispered Cassandra. The creature spoke, its voice bypassing their ears and resonating directly in their minds. Pathetic. After all this time, the great predecessor's final defense is a primitive species barely out of its planetary cradle. The Null Empress gestured, and pain exploded in everyone's head. Everyone except Drew, who found the sword glowing brighter, shielding him. You cannot stop what is coming, the Empress continued. This galaxy will feed us for millennia. Drew met her gaze, or where her gaze would be if she had eyes. You're wrong. He plunged the sword into the modified dais. Instead of triggering solar destruction, it created a cascading effect through the entangled null fleet. A dimensional rift larger than any before it tore open space above the moon. Now, Drew shouted. Brooke activated the modified signal. One by one, the skeletal ships were pulled into the rift, their own energy turning against them. The Null Empress shrieked in frequencies that shattered equipment and caused everyone except Cassandra to bleed from their ears. Impossible, the Empress hissed as her form began to disintegrate. The prophecy stated the key-bearer would sacrifice. I am sacrificing, Drew grimaced, blood streaming from his nose as he maintained connection with the sword. Just not what you expected. The modified aegis was consuming his life force to maintain stability. Without a solar system's destruction to power it, the burden fell on the sword's connection to its wielder. As the last null ships disappeared into the rift, Cassandra moved with sudden decision. She placed her void-like hands over Drew's on the sword hilt. You have proven my people wrong, human, she said. Perhaps that is why the sword chose you. She dissolved into pure energy, flowing into the sword and through Drew's body. The pain vanished as the dimensional rift sealed permanently. Drew collapsed, the sword transforming in his hands into a small crystalline device. Lily rushed to his side. Drew, stay with us. His eyes fluttered open. Did it work? See for yourself, Paige said, pointing to the now transparent ceiling of the vault. Above them, the last traces of the rift were closing. No null ships remained in the system. "You did it," Maya said, her skin a warm gold color that none of the humans had ever seen before. "You saved my world." Drew tried to sit up but found he was too weak. Not just me. All of us. That's the point the predecessors missed. Individuals fail where communities succeed. Brooke helped him stand. "What happened to Cassandra?" Drew looked at the crystal in his hand. Within it, tiny points of light swirled like stars. "I think she's here," he said. "Or part of her. And I think she's not done with us yet." It took them hours to make their way back to what remained of the Valkyrie capital. The Null attack had devastated the city, but already rebuilding had begun. Surprisingly, the Valkyrie treated the humans not with resentment, but with a new respect. In the grand hall where the sword ceremony had taken place just days before, a new council had formed. Elder Valerie was gone, but Ambassador Maya now stood among the new elders, her skin rippling with purpose. "The Galactic Coalition must change," she announced to the assembled representatives of 12 species. "For too long we Valkyrie have claimed superiority. Today we learned that salvation came not from strength but from adaptation and cooperation." She gestured to Drew and the human delegation. "These newcomers to our coalition have done what none of us could. They faced our most ancient enemy and found a way to defeat them without destruction." One of the Cronians, a massive rock-skinned being, stepped forward. "How do we know they won't use the predecessor technology against us? The human now holds the key to the Vault of Stars." Drew stepped forward, still weak but determined. He held up the crystal that had once been a sword. "I don't hold the key," he said. "I am merely its temporary guardian. What's in the vault doesn't belong to humans or Valkyrie or any single species. It belongs to all sentient life in this galaxy." He looked around the room, meeting the eyes, sensory organs, or awareness centers of each alien representative. "My proposal is this: form a new coalition, one where all species have equal voice. Together we will study the vault's contents and use it not for war or dominance, but to build a better future for all." The room erupted in debate, but Maya's golden skin glowed with approval. "It will not be easy," she said quietly to Drew. 9,000 years of tradition do not change overnight. Nothing worth doing is ever easy," Drew replied. As they spoke, the crystal in his hand pulsed once with inner light. For just a moment, Drew thought he heard Cassandra's voice in his mind. "This is only the beginning, Keybearer. The Null will return, and when they do, the galaxy must be ready." Drew closed his fingers around the crystal. "We will be." 3 months passed. The GCS Horizon remained in orbit around the Valkyrie homeworld as Earth and the Coalition negotiated a new treaty. Drew spent most of his time in the Vault of Stars, studying the incredible technology left behind by the predecessors. "You're pushing yourself too hard," Lily told him one morning as they walked through the Vault's massive archives. "You need rest." Drew shook his head. "I can't rest. Not yet." He held up the crystal that had once been the sword of Zarathi. "Cassandra keeps showing me things. Knowledge. History. Warnings." "Warnings about what?" "The Null we fought were just scouts," Drew said grimly. "The main force is still out there, moving between galaxies. We have maybe 5 years before they arrive." Lily stopped walking. 5 years. That's not enough time to prepare." "It has to be," Drew replied. "That's why I'm working with the Coalition science team. We need to understand this technology and adapt it for our defense." In another part of the vault, Paige and Brooke worked alongside scientists from 7 different species. The cooperation was unprecedented in Coalition history. "The predecessors were incredible," Paige said, examining a device that could manipulate gravity. "But they had blind spots. They were so advanced, they forgot how to improvise." Brooke nodded, her fingers dancing across an interface that responded to her thoughts. "That's why they created the sword. They knew they needed a fresh perspective." On Earth, news of the alien encounter and humanity's role in saving the Valkyrie had sparked both excitement and fear. The United Nations had formed a new department, specifically to handle relations with the Coalition. Military leaders worried about the implications of the Null threat, while scientists were eager to learn from alien technology. Commander Everett had been promoted to Admiral and now led Earth's delegation to the Coalition. Captain Drew Harrington, much to his surprise, had become something of a legend among both humans and aliens. "They're calling you the Sword-Bearer on 3 planets," Lily told him with a smile. "There are already children's stories about you." Drew grimaced. "I didn't ask for any of this." "Few heroes do," said a voice behind them. They turned to see Ambassador Maya approaching. Her skin shimmered with a new color, a deep purple with gold flecks that indicated her elevated status in Valkyrie society. "The Council has reached a decision," she said. "We wish to establish a permanent embassy on Earth and request that humans establish one here." "That's wonderful news," Lily said. "The Admiral will be pleased." Maya's skin rippled with amusement. "There is more. The Council also wishes to offer Captain Harrington a position as head of a new department, the Vault Guardians, a joint task, force of all Coalition species dedicated to studying and protecting predecessor technology." Drew looked surprised. "I'm just a security officer. I don't have the scientific background for that." "You have something more important," Maya replied. "You have the trust of the Sword. Of Cassandra." As if on cue, the crystal in Drew's pocket pulsed with light. Back on the horizon, Admiral Everett received the news with mixed feelings. "It's a great honor," she told Drew, "but it means you'd be stationed here permanently, not returning to Earth." Drew nodded. "I know, but Earth will be part of the Coalition now. I can visit." "Have you told your family?" Lily asked. Drew's face darkened. "Not yet. It's not an easy conversation to have over a video call." "Hi, Mom. I'm staying on an alien planet to guard ancient technology and prepare for an intergalactic invasion." That evening, Drew stood on the observation deck of the Horizon, looking down at the Valkyrie homeworld. Its 3 moons hung in the sky, one of them housing the Vault of Stars. "Beautiful, isn't it?" said a voice behind him. He turned to see Brooke, who had come to join him at the window. "It is," he agreed. "Different from Earth, but beautiful in its own way. Are you going to accept their offer?" she asked. Drew pulled out the crystal. In the 3 months since the battle, it had changed. The swirling lights inside had grown brighter, and sometimes he could swear he saw patterns forming, constellations, star maps, coordinates. "I don't think I have a choice," he said quietly. "Whatever's coming, I'm part of it now." Brooke placed a hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone, you know. Paige and I have requested to join the Vault Guardians too. And I hear Lieutenant Kim from Engineering is interested as well." Drew smiled, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you." The crystal pulsed again, and this time Drew clearly heard Cassandra's voice in his mind. "It is time, Keybearer. There is more you must learn." Drew sighed. "Duty calls. Cassandra wants to show me something." In his quarters, Drew sat cross-legged on the floor, the crystal balanced on his palms. He closed his eyes and let his mind merge with the consciousness inside the crystal. Immediately, he was overwhelmed with images, stars being born and dying, civilizations rising and falling across millions of years, the predecessors evolving from physical forms to energy beings, and finally, the coming of the Null. "They are not from our reality," Cassandra's voice explained in his mind. "They come from a place where entropy won, where all energy has been consumed. They hunger for the life of this universe." Drew saw the war that had raged across multiple galaxies, the predecessors, fighting a desperate battle against an enemy that could not be destroyed, only contained. "We created weapons, shields, barriers," Cassandra continued. "But in the end we realized we could not win through force alone. We needed a new approach. The vision shifted to show the creation of the sword, a key that would choose a worthy successor, a species with the right combination of traits. We seeded many worlds with our genetic material, hoping to create heirs who could finish what we started," Cassandra explained. "The Valkyrie were promising, but too rigid in their thinking. They preserved but did not innovate." Drew saw early, humans watched as predecessor observers noted their adaptability, their creativity, their stubborn refusal to accept no-win scenarios. Your species was our last hope, Cassandra's voice whispered. And you did not disappoint. The vision faded, and Drew opened his eyes. The crystal had changed again, now forming a small pyramid shape that glowed with inner light. He knew what he had to do. The next day, representatives from all 12 coalition species gathered in the grand chamber of the vault. Drew stood at the center, holding the transformed crystal. The threat we face is greater than any of us imagined, he began. The Null that attacked 3 months ago were only scouts. Their main force will arrive in 5 years. Murmurs of fear spread through the assembly. But we have advantages they don't expect, Drew continued. We have the predecessors' technology. We have knowledge of their weaknesses, and most importantly, we have each other. He held up the crystal. Cassandra, the last of the predecessors, has shown me their history and their mistakes. They tried to fight alone. We won't make that error. Drew placed the crystal in a pedestal at the center of the room. It expanded, projecting a holographic map of the galaxy with red points of light showing the Null invasion path. Today, we form the Vault Guardians, not just to study and protect predecessor technology, but to prepare our galaxy for war. Every species has something unique to contribute. Together, we'll find a way to defeat the Null once and for all. One by one, representatives stepped forward to place their hands or appendages on the pedestal, symbolizing their commitment to the Alliance. Maya was the first, her skin glowing golden with determination. The Valkyrie pledge our fleets and warriors. A Cronian rumbled forward. The Cronian Collective offers our mineral wealth and engineering skills. The ethereal form of an ether being floated up. The Ether Conclave will share our mental powers and dimensional understanding. And so it continued, each species joining the pact. Admiral Everett was the last to step forward. Earth is new to this coalition, but we bring our innovation, adaptability, and determination. Where the predecessors failed, together we will succeed. As she placed her hand on the pedestal, the crystal pulsed with the brightest light yet. The holographic map expanded, showing defensive positions, research facilities, and training centers that would be established across the galaxy. Drew felt Cassandra's presence one last time in his mind. You have begun well, Keybearer. But remember, the Null are not the only threat waiting in the dark between stars. Watch, prepare, unite. Drew looked around at the assembled representatives, former enemies now allies, diverse species united by a common purpose. We will, he promised. 4 years later, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. What began as the Vault Guardians had expanded into the Galactic Defense Force, a unified military and scientific organization with bases on hundreds of worlds. Drew stood on the bridge of the Celestial Aegis, the flagship of the human fleet. Built with a combination of Earth and predecessor technology, it was the most powerful warship ever created by human hands. Similar vessels had been constructed by the Valkyrie, the Cronians, and the other coalition species. Status report, Drew ordered. Lieutenant Kim, now his second in command, looked up from her console. All systems normal, Captain. The fleet is in position. Early warning stations report no Null activity yet. Drew nodded. And the dimensional barrier? The final generator was activated yesterday, Kim replied. The barrier now surrounds the entire galaxy. If the Null try to enter through their usual dimensional rifts, they'll be redirected to empty space. It had been a monumental project. Thousands of massive generators placed at strategic points throughout the galaxy, creating an invisible shield that would prevent the Null from using their preferred method of travel. Drew touched the small crystal pendant he wore around his neck. Over the years, it had continued to change, becoming smaller but more intricate, the swirling lights inside forming increasingly complex patterns. Cassandra is restless, he said quietly to Admiral Everett, who stood beside him on the bridge. She senses something coming. Lily, her hair now streaked with gray after years of leading Earth's extraterrestrial defense, frowned. The Null? Maybe. But different somehow. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call from the Vault of Stars, where Page and Brooke still led the research division. Drew, We've detected an anomaly, Page's holographic image reported. A massive energy signature just appeared at the edge of the galaxy. It doesn't match null patterns. Send the coordinates, Drew ordered. We'll check it out. The Celestial, Aegis and 2 Valkyrie cruisers diverted to investigate. As they approached the coordinates, sensors detected a single object, enormous, at least 10 times the size of their flagship. Visual contact, Lieutenant Kim announced. The main view screen activated, showing a massive vessel unlike anything they had seen before. It wasn't the skeletal black design of null ships, but something far more elegant, a structure of light and crystal that seemed to shift and change as they watched. It's beautiful, whispered Maya, who now served as the Valkyrie ambassador to the Defense Force. Drew felt the crystal pendant grow warm against his chest. Cassandra's voice spoke clearly. In his mind, they have returned. My people have returned. Impossible, Drew muttered. The predecessors left this plane of existence millions of years ago. But the evidence was right in front of them. The massive ship pulsed with the same energy signature as the crystal, as the vault of stars, as all predecessor technology. We're being hailed, Kim reported, sounding surprised. It's on all frequencies in all languages simultaneously. Put it through, Drew ordered. The view screen changed, showing a being of pure light in vaguely humanoid form. Unlike Cassandra, who had maintained a physical appearance, this entity seemed barely contained in 3-dimensional space. Greetings, children of the galaxy, the being said, its voice resonating directly in their minds. We are those you call the predecessors. We have been watching from another plane of existence. Drew stepped forward. Why have you returned now? Because you have done what we could not, the being replied. You united the species of this galaxy against a common threat. You improved upon our technology instead of merely preserving it. You found a third path where we saw only 2. The being seemed to focus on Drew, or more specifically, on the crystal he wore. Cassandra. You have changed. Drew felt the crystal warm again as Cassandra responded through him. As have you, Elder One. I remain to guide them as you instructed. And you have done well, the being acknowledged. Better than we anticipated. Admiral Everett joined Drew. If you've been watching us, you know the Null are coming. Will you help us fight them? The predecessor being seemed to consider this. The Null are a consequence of our actions long ago. A mistake we made when we first explored dimensional travel. We attempted to seal them away rather than address the fundamental imbalance we created. What do you mean? Drew asked. The Null consume because they must, the being explained. Their dimension is dying. They seek to drain the energy of this universe to survive. Drew felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying they're not evil? That they're just trying to survive? Intention and effect are different matters, the being replied. A drowning person may pull down a rescuer without malice, yet both still drown. The crystal pendant pulsed with light, and Drew felt Cassandra's frustration. You still speak in riddles, Elder One. These people need concrete help, not philosophy. The predecessor seemed to shimmer with what might have been amusement. You have grown attached to them, Cassandra. You have become more like them than like us. Perhaps that is why I understand what must be done, Cassandra replied through Drew. The conversation was interrupted by alarms blaring throughout the ship. Multiple dimensional rifts forming, Lieutenant Kim reported urgently. The barrier is holding, but they're applying unprecedented pressure. Drew turned back to the view screen. The Null are here. Will you help us or not? The predecessor being expanded, its light form growing to fill the screen. We will share knowledge, but the fight must be yours. We cannot directly intervene without unraveling the dimensional barriers we now maintain. The being transmitted a massive data stream directly to their computers. Information about Null weaknesses, about dimensional physics beyond anything they had discovered, about weapons and defenses the predecessors had developed but never deployed. Use this wisely, the being said. Remember that destruction is not always the answer. Sometimes balance is what's needed. With that cryptic message, the predecessor ship began to fade, becoming transparent until it vanished completely. "They're gone," Maya said, her skin pulsing with disappointed gray. "They just gave us information and left." Drew felt the crystal pendant vibrate. Not all of them left. "Cassandra is still with us." He turned to Admiral Everett. "We need to get this information to the Defense Force immediately. There might be something here we can use." For the next several days, the best scientific minds in the Coalition worked frantically to analyze the predecessor data. The Null continued their assault on the dimensional barrier, creating distortions and ripples in space-time throughout the galaxy. Page and Brooke led the research team that made the breakthrough. "It's not about destroying them," Page explained, during an emergency council meeting. "It's about redirecting them," Brooke continued. "The predecessors found a way to create artificial pocket dimensions, spaces that could sustain the Null, but keep them separate from our reality. Like a nature preserve," Drew said, understanding dawning. "Exactly," Page nodded. "We use their hunger to lure them, then seal them in a space where they can feed on artificial energy sources we create." The plan was audacious, requiring coordination on a galactic scale. Every ship in the Defense Force would need to be modified. Every dimensional generator reprogrammed. They had 3 days before the Null broke through. Drew stood in the Vault of Stars, in the chamber where he had first met Cassandra 4 years ago. The crystal pendant levitated from his neck, hovering before him. "You knew this was the solution all along, didn't you?" he asked. The crystal pulsed, and Cassandra's voice spoke clearly in the room for the first time since she had merged with the sword. "Not with certainty, but I hoped. My people forgot compassion in their evolution. They saw the Null as a mistake to be contained rather than a life form to be accommodated. And you think we can succeed where they failed?" "I know you can," Cassandra replied, "but it will require sacrifice." Drew nodded grimly. "The bait. Someone needs to lead the Null into the pocket dimension." "Yes, and ensure the seal is complete." Drew touched the crystal gently. "That's why the sword chose me, isn't it? Not to destroy the Null, but to save both them and us." "The sword chose you because you would look for another way," Cassandra confirmed. "As you did when you first confronted the Null scouts." Drew took a deep breath. "I'll do it." The day of the Null invasion arrived. The dimensional barrier failed precisely where they had predicted, creating a controlled entry point. The entire Defense Force was positioned in a massive formation, thousands of ships from a dozen species, all following a unified plan. Drew commanded from the Celestial Aegis, positioned at the vanguard. "All ships report ready," Lieutenant Kim announced. Drew nodded. "Begin Phase 1. The fleet activated the modified dimensional generators, creating a visible pathway of energy, a road the Null couldn't resist following. The main Null force emerged. From the rift, not hundreds of ships as they had faced before, but thousands. Planet-sized entities of negative space surrounded by swarms of smaller craft. "They're taking the bait," Admiral Everett reported from her command ship. Proceeding to Phase 2. The fleet began a coordinated withdrawal, leading the Null Armada toward the massive dimensional pocket they had prepared. At each checkpoint, ships peeled away until only the Celestial Aegis remained, drawing the Null forward with an irresistible energy signature.